Hello everyone, my name is Isaiah Bozimo. I am a partner in the firm of Broderick Bozimo Company, and I am the immediate past Attorney General of Delta State in Nigeria. So the interesting story is I almost never did international commercial arbitration. I remember in 2005 I was preparing for my master's degree, and my preferred topic was international commercial litigation. But luckily I was having a conversation with a family friend. He was a judge, and he advised me to do commercial arbitration instead. He felt it was more appropriate for international and cross-border disputes. Happily, I listened to that advice. I took the modules in commercial arbitration, and fast forward 1 year later, I got to experience one. I remember I was an intern in the law firm of Alex. I was reporting to who many of you know, Funke Adekoya, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, and I told her I'm interested in commercial arbitration. I just did a master's in it. And she brought a huge file before my table and said, okay, well, then write me an opinion on this after you've read it. So undeterred, I wrote the opinion. I wrote what I thought was the relative strengths and weaknesses of each side's case. But when it came to the issue of quantum, I had no idea what to do. So I said, well, quantum is a matter for the tribunal to decide. She saw right through me, brought the file back and says, give me an opinion on quantum. I did my best. I think I did a decent job because a few days later, she invited me to witness the arbitration, and that's where my interest really took off. So before my appointment as Attorney General, I was actually already very heavily invested in arbitration, both in Nigeria and across the African continent. And I think most people probably knew me in arbitration circles. My role as Attorney General ended on the 29th of May this year, 2023. So far, just a few months down the line, I haven't noticed an appreciable impact or relationship between the two. We were very lucky to have achieved many great accomplishments during my time as Attorney General of Delta State, but I think the one I'm most proud of and that will be most appropriate to this audience is our ability to pass the Delta State Arbitration Law of 2022. In my opinion, I think it is probably the most progressive arbitration law, certainly in Nigeria and arguably in Africa. It introduces concepts of third-party funding, goes beyond merely defining it, but to actually give a regulatory framework for it. Introduces concepts that are very progressive in favor of arbitration. For instance, it mandates that any arbitration-related application as a default will be heard virtually. The advantage being that irrespective of where the parties are, you can hear your arbitration-related applications before the courts, and the courts will deal with it in a very expeditious way, because we've also included arbitration proceedings rules in the schedule to that law that prescribe a timetable for the timeliest determination of those proceedings. So I'm extremely proud of that. That's a great question. I remember I was once asked, what do I think is the biggest difference between private practice and practicing in a public office? And I think it's the ability to actually drive change. So in my previous answer, I gave the example of the Delta State Arbitration Law of 2022. So the law before that was the Delta State Arbitration Law of 1918, which was based on the English Arbitration Act of 1889. So being able to really push policy, push change is a significant advantage, and I would encourage anybody who wants to practice in a government institution to do so. I presume the question goes to independence and impartiality as an arbitrator, and if it does, then constitutionally speaking, I was unable to take on any arbitrator appointments while I served as Attorney General. But if the question goes to remaining unbiased while I served as Attorney General, then the oath of my office bound me to do so. It depends very much on the nature of the dispute in question. From experience, I found that if we wanted to get to the quickest resolution possible in a government-related commercial dispute, then mediation was the answer. But we had other situations where we actually wanted to lay a precedent, and in that case, we had no option but to duke it out in litigation, as it were. Yes, I have, on more than one occasion, and the question we usually consider is which arbitrator will be able to understand our point of view best. So in a government-related disputes, there are certain factors that might not exist in a commercial dispute, a purely commercial dispute, primary of which is probably decision-making time. there is a system where each major decision has to be approved by, for instance, an attorney general, a secretary to the state government, or the governor themselves. So the decision-making process might be a little bit slower. So we need an arbitrator that understands the culture of government so as not to misconstrue our point of view and our submissions. Thank you very much, C.Arb YMG, for the invitation. Very much enjoyed the questions. Hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I have, and hope to see you soon.